egging plants. I am so pleased to have been invited to curate this evening's sharing of words of CHamoru, and also our lovely relative who's both CHamoru and Palauan, poets, to represent this legacy of our ancestors, a legacy of oral historians, of people who engage with rhyme, metaphor, allegory, oral history through the spoken word. We have a really beautiful group of people that have joined us today. Folks who are in the homeland right now, people who are also in the lands of other Indigenous peoples. We have people who are moms. We have people who are artists and visionaries, community organizers, lawyers, all people who are doing incredible and important work on behalf of our people, and I also believe in service of our collective liberation. So I just feel so pleased and humbled to be joined by this powerful crew. One of the things that we do back home before we go into the jungle or out into the water is we acknowledge the ancestors of the land, the waters. We ask the permission to move through that space. I think it's a really beautiful tradition, and it's a way of demonstrating our love and respect for those that came before us. I think that it's important for us as Mathdown Chamorro people to demonstrate that same kind of respect for whatever land that we go in, not just in the lands back home. Today, I'm calling in from Dok Opsh, Duwamish territory. I live on the hill known as Lashutsi by the mountain Dakobid. Right now, I'm right next to the waters that they call Eating Monster, which used to be fed by the Dok Opsh River into the Salishan. And all of us are calling in, listening in from lands that range from the lands of the Mathdown Chamorro people, from Laguas and Guahan, the Northern Marianas. I'm sure all across the world, I saw some folks from Tecranto and many different places throughout Turtle Island. And we're also on the Zoom platform tonight, which is powered by the lands of the Ohlone. And all of us are also on these beautiful technological devices, which are also complex and full of their own contradictions, because the earth was extracted from in order to create the possibility for us to be together. So there's quite a lot of forces that have made this moment possible. And so in the tradition of our ancestors, and in a tradition that I think carries a lot of integrity, I want to offer a song of gratitude and respect and reciprocity to all of the ancestors that have made this moment and are making this moment possible. All of the ancestors of the peoples that are here, the ancestors of all the lands that were mentioned, the lands that were spoken in our hearts, the lands that are connected to this moment in time. And I would like to offer a song that was taught to me by my friend and relative, Jeremy Cepeda. It's called Ineni Hamzu, and it means we greet you with love and respect and praise our ancestors. We greet you with love and respect and praise our siblings and our relatives, our beloved ones, and we greet you with love and respect all those that came before us. And I invite you to take this moment in with the sounds of the trees and the birds and the wind as an opportunity to be in resonance with your ancestors and with what you hold sacred to you. Ineni Hamzu Manyanan Mami Ineni Hamzu Manyelun Mami Ineni Iman Morphonai Wiham Ineni Iman mo for night we have. Inne ni hamzu. Man ni hamzu. Man yelun mami inne ni. Iman mo for night we have. Inneni Iman mo for night we have. Inneni hamzu man yanan mami. Inneni hamzu man yelun mami. Inneni Iman mo for night we have. Inneni Iman mo for night we have. Well, with gratitude and respect to all of creation, we open this event hosted at the New Eurekan, which makes its home the lands of the Napoki, the island they call Manahata, the lands of the Lenape. And I would like to open the space today by inviting a beloved friend, a queer relative who's a powerful voice of what really happens in the body and in the spirit as we are living through the conditions and the oppressive society that's been put on top of us in all of these different ways. Someone who finds beauty and power in gentleness, in connecting with nature, in connecting with other peoples. And that is my friend, Lehua Taitano. Would love to invite you to open our space today. Nidai Ma'asi.
Sana Ma'asi Tsetlu. Hello, everyone. I'm Lehua Taitano. I am the granddaughter of Maria Flores. I am the daughter of Catherine Taitano. My family names are Cabeza and Cuetu. I'm joining you today from Miwok and Pomo lands here in California. And I'm grateful to share this space with you. As Dakota said, we come from many places. We're joining you from many places. And I would just encourage you, if you're not sure whose Indigenous lands you're visiting, to please investigate that and let us know in the chat what you discover. Today, I'm going to share a poem with you that I wrote in response to a really simple question. And the question was, as a queer Pacific Island woman, how are you doing? So I'm going to share this poem called Current I and give you my response to that. The conventional symbol for current is I, originating from the French, an intensity of electrical flow measured as a quantity per unit of time. Consider, we are made almost entirely of water and electricity. So our vernacular of emotion employs surge, wave, spark, impulse and current, the flood of salt or rush of crackling blue pulse of arcing rivulet, a measurement of with and without. The ecstatic penetration of sperm into egg, we have all seen the microscopic iconography. The wombless state will ordain this, the electric moment of life, will brand each womb sanctified property. My mother was conceived during a war waged on brown bodies and birthed me under a moon obscured by flags. Electric layers of ocean reveal themselves as an ancestral coding of me, of her, and her, and her, as the spear and the plunge, the cavern of handprints, the caverns of decapitation. The lightning spark cannot be created because it was already there. In the gloam, human nostalgia presses to know where, when, which gods touch the first impulse of light into darkness, first enacted a separation of shadow into meaning. Yet I fork, bead, ribbon the light into existence, insistence, with each sloughing of saltwater blood, each recollection of current. I. Tanu I CHamoru. Our people were shaped from stone and the pulsing sea. Sisters crouched, body, wave kneaded, salt lapped until we tumbled from her, of them, all strong, strong and whole together. Birds regarded our seafoam anklets, our slippery ropes of hair, our cheeks full of pebbles and scattered from the shore, singing. We opened our new mouths to our own chorus, crooning, sister, brother. We are sun, moon, sky, water, earth, all siblings. I believe in reincarnation in so much as I know an ancestor passed to me the memory of making oneself into a universe. One self, I, connected to, no, concurrent with every iteration of subatomic movement. How then am I queer? Queered. I am also only queer because there is a world outside of mine. If the world were only me, I would seem just so. A microcosmos of animal, mineral, plant, light, electric I, yet the world. Here's what I can say. I am I, warrior I, glacier I, photon I, vine I, rivulet I, integer I, summoner I, wave I, exhalation I, mother I, lava I, hilum I, Haifa I, I, prism I, and culture bending through me. The world spits, grapples, tries to tie me up in basements to rid themselves of my insistence. Ancestor wired me a path within. Inside the brick spaces, throughout and becoming the walls and clouds, I swallow bolts, I expand, I empty, carry within 100,000 wombs of spectacular light. Thank you for being present. Next up on this amazing roster, I would like to invite my friend Clarissa Mendiola, Reese, and I would like you to know that becoming friends with this Setlu seems inevitable. We met actually at the very first poetry reading that I did, where there was another Chamorro person in attendance, and that was only a few years ago. Since then, we have been able to share in community with the Pulan Collective here in the Bay Area on Ohlone land. And I've come to know Reese as not only a wonderful writer and poet, but a really beautiful, generous friend and mother. And I am very excited for you to hear what she has to offer today.
Si Dios ma'asi, saina ma'asi lehua. I just am so grateful for our friendship. Thank you for that introduction. Buenas den Hafade from San Francisco, which is Ramaytush Ohlone territory. Guahusi Clarissa Mendiola, Familian Monuk, and Familian Vincent Tikotsu. I'm grateful to be here tonight to stand alongside these amazing Indigenous forces, these Indigenous voices. And the first poem I'd like to read is entitled Ars Poetica, which is a term that describes a poem about poetry, and I hope it serves as an invitation to you and to my work tonight. I started a list which became a song, its verses and chorus packed neatly on the page, a stone path leading always to ocean. You once asked what it was I care about, and I know now that it is music, melody that resonates in the marrow, consonants and symmetry and waves, music that would split open a sky to make space for the flight of a dozen captive bred birds. A vibrato to ignite the swell of sea, bringing our lost money beads to shore, tumbled smooth with the bones of our children who died in the name of a colonizer that cared only for their strategically placed bodies on a war map, for their beautifully carved tibia. Bring them home, come home. A beat aligned with the swing and till and plant of our ancestors in the field who sang out loud to invite collaboration. The cadence of their cantan tamurita filling the air until the whole island rhymed in laughter, a refrain of generational joy. Perhaps you find this passion predictable, so let me ask you, what is a heartbeat but a prediction of life? My child once declared a song too good for his ears, meaning it moved his whole self, meaning he heard it from the gut. Let me ask you, what good is it to intellectualize music when we are a people who carry it in our bodies, and every skull kept bedside, and every bone-tipped spear, and every strand of hair glistening with coconut oil? Our language, a song sung for thousands of years, alive despite every effort to wipe the melody from our mouths, from our memory we sing. It's possible the body knows the instrument as an extension of itself, a phantom limb waiting to feel, to be felt, to be voiced, to be heard, primed for the tingle of generations gone, for the promise of generations to come. The next piece I'd like to share, I really consider to be a prayer for my children, a prayer that they know themselves and that they know if they ever feel lost, they can, as islanders do, find alignment at the sea. And it's called Nearly There. For a moment, we are home. Salt water etches a crude map across the hull of your back, charting a path to your tiny center. This is a brown child's topography. Sand clings to your ankles like so many freckles to prove your relation to the sun. You whisper, "Mommy, we are brown because we come from an island." I pause to revel in the words, how they land on your heart, how they enter the world again in song. "Sweetie, we've been floating our entire lives," I say, and here we are grounded up to our shoulders in ocean. It's a familiar pleasure. We almost grasp it with our sea-sticky fingers, if not for the heap of spondylus fragments in our palms. If we let go, we could leave a trail for others lost at sea. I sink my hands into hot sand and watch you walk toward the water, your knowing stride, your sun-darkened arms an outrigger, your hair catching the wind, a pandanus sail. And this last piece I'd like to share tonight meditates on the experience that I think a lot of off-island CHamoru people might have, feeling of being untethered and just a longing for grounding. And it's called, What Does It Mean? What does it mean to be lost on our home island when we assumed sustenance? At a certain point, we stopped counting the miles, the blisters, the tiny stinging slits of skin where swordgrass quietly conducts its rebellion. We stop wincing at the sound of our saturated footsteps, at the dissonance of our American accents which constantly betray us, at the sloppy weight of our hiking shoes soaked in the same mud Mom wiped off her feet as a girl before school to keep her poverty hidden. No, we wear smears of red dirt across our brows as if ceremony to rejoice in this elusive homecoming while we search and search for you. We follow ancestral protocol with purest intention, Menyainen mami kosinya mamalofen ham gitanumidzo, yet you remain hidden Isn't the map etched beneath our skin? Why won't our blood bring it to surface? Months later, we meet a distant brother at a fiesta who brags as he offers directions to you like Chentsuli alongside mediocre Finadeni, incredulous that we descendants of Fotna simply could not locate you with all of our technology and GPS and Google Maps and tactical gear and moisture wicking shirts with all of our indigenous resilience and ancestral guidance and stars in our bones could not. Gwela Dangwela, Kosinyahu Sodahau. Sometimes I'll enter you into a search bar and mourn over images of white boys with their military sculpted biceps and their cargo shorts and their baseball hats standing under your falls, boasting another manifest destiny. Then in my blurred periphery, I make out my children who don't yet know the smell of you, the volume of your heat, how you can cradle it in your hands, tactile, sweet, the plumpest fruit scarring its own flesh. They've never seen a sky so massive or a horizon so engulfing, never walked into a room where the color of their skin, refracted by so many other beautiful brown bodies, creates light that heals from the inside out. They've never plunged into your glassy waters to reenact their first gestation, yet they ache for your liberation as if intrinsically linked to their own, and it is. What does it mean to feel so lost you find yourself a tourist on your own ancestral land? And how is it that even mosquitoes sense otherness, drinking their share of our blood as confirmation? What's written there that reveals our transgression? We know now that we'll spend our whole lives trying to find you. Hey Siri, navigate home becomes a chant until it becomes a soundtrack for our own children. I pray that someday they find you as easily as they find me in the night, only half lucid, still reeling in the tender space where dreams are yet alive, holding out their arms for the unconditional promise of my body close by, this body that drew them into existence. Me, I'm always half awake, just waiting for this moment to respond, to say, yes, I'm here, to place their tiny hands upon my face so they feel my warmth, so they know their place, so they fall asleep to dream again. Saina Ma'asi, Sijus Ma'asi, thank you. Next, I want to welcome the curator of this event, Dakota Komatsu, who I've had the pleasure of getting to know in recent months. We both participate in a gathering for CHamoru children to help teach them our language and to plant in them the seeds of pride in our culture. And my kids love the Indigenous movement exercises that he facilitates, and I admire so much Dakota's dedication to our people, to our culture, to our language, and the way in which he imagines and activates our Indigenous present and future. So, Dakota.
Oh, migay mo asi nui ginef down na finot mo Reese. Then wow, mikana, mikana, mi neck good. That was powerful. Thank you so much. Those words. Okay, I'm shaking because they're so good. And the pieces that I wanted to share to you are both in dedication to the tradition of navigation. And this first one actually comes from being a traveler and wanting to express my gratitude for all the lands that I've been able to travel through, and expresses that giving life to the to creation itself is really the only prayer that I wish to do. Anai gumo guputu gilenge huasu hi pengata nui minaulet na finatu lu malai tu dan imen yanahu nat lot la ili nat la Adu hariti nadu. Anagumuguputu gilangye uhasu. Ipangata nuiming naulit na finatu. Lumalay to tanhiman ganau. Na lord la healing not la. Adu ha eating not do. As I fly through the heavens, I think about, I remember, and I imagine the customs of a good arrival. And I sing with my ancestors, give life to creation itself. And that is the only prayer. I'm thinking about that right now, particularly because of the photos that Protehila Tetzin released yesterday that exposed the horrendous violence that the military is visiting upon our people right now. And that comes in the form of the military against the wishes of our people, clear cutting over about nine, I think, was it 9 or 900 football fields of land. And that land is burial grounds of our ancestors. It is the resting place of our ancestors. It is land that is that was covered with endangered species of plants, medicines, trees of our living ancestors. And it's also land that is home of our aquifer. And they want to fire about 6.7 million bullets a year on that land. And our people are very upset about it because it endangers our lives, it endangers the lives of the ecosystem. And we are already surviving through so much destruction, poisoning, and legacies of dispossession. And when I heard this news, I was pretty devastated. And I've been thinking a lot about devastation, about hardship, and about our ancestors who travel the seas. And I put my faith in the community organizers. I put my actions in service to our movement as much as possible. And I also put my faith in our ancestors and in Signing Idza Hululu to guide us, so all people, to remember our sacred responsibilities to this land. And so this next piece is dedicated to the finding of peace within oneself by following the guidance of our ancestors. Itzalan tosi ilang himon lo hilutano iputi untime iputi un seplo iputi un matzota ipapagatsi asaina ilina lainya inai ieda ifangwaluan Itzita itzaksun long erifinatu Minagon. Migay Maasi. I'm going to be passing the mic now to Siobhon McManus, and so blessed to have you with us and to share your powerful writing and work in the community. I know you as somebody I don't know you too well, but what I do know about you is that you are a fierce advocate for our people. You're on the front lines of our movement for sovereignty, both through direct action work, but also working in the community. You're an incredibly deep thinker, and you're working on building the first ever charter school in the south of Guahan. And I just really appreciate the class analysis that you bring to our movement, and the just ferocious indigenous feminist, like CHamoru matriarch power. So I'd like to pass the mic over to you now. Migai Maasi. Did I mess up? I totally messed up. Go on. Take it over, Siobhan.
It's okay. I think I'm supposed to be responding to Julian, but I mean, if it still works for me to go, because I feel like my pieces are in conversation with his, I wouldn't mind sharing now too.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? For some reason,
All right.
Oh, Julian says it works.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for being flexible with my.
Yeah, no worries. So the piece that I wanted to share today, I actually wrote after being in like a writing rut. Like I really haven't written anything in the past year that I even liked, and I felt so uninspired. And I think maybe a lot of people can identify with just like lockdown fatigue and being isolated. And Julian's book had come to me in the middle of like probably one of the worst depressive episodes I've had since probably college. And it was so special to kind of read something that reminded me the beauty of Chamorro art, and just how art is a vessel of like our own escapism, our own romanticization of our home, and that it's something that allows us to exist outside of the heaviness of our suffering, right? Colonization. And Julian's book has really grounded me in this idea of beauty in peril, but also that our beauty as a people, our land, our home is something that will always get to belong to us first before it belongs to anybody else. And even as we wake up and we watch the news and we see images of our land being deforested, and even in all of like the chaos and the violence of existing as a Micronesian in a very militarized space, right? We still get to wake up and participate in the small, beautiful things that are just ours, right? Our homes, our families, going to the beach, right? Like things that as a Chamorro and as a Palauan, you have to like ground yourselves in those things and remind yourself that like I am more than just a person working against colonization. So this poem is called Jellyfish Lake. And it kind of begins with a little bit of a background on the lake itself. So I'll just begin. Jellyfish Lake is a marine lake located on Al Melk, an island in Palau, and it's part of the Rock Islands, a group of small, mostly uninhabited islands in Palau's southern lagoon. And in it are the golden jellyfish, the Mastigius. And possibly other species in the lake have evolved to be substantially different from their close relatives living in nearby lagoons. So this is a poem about the golden jellyfish there. In my mother's homeland, in the middle of a 12,000-year-old marine lake, there are jellyfish that don't sting. They sleep, they wake, they eat, they chase the sun that moves across the lake's surface like clockwork. Millions of them bloom from the depths to go about their daily routines, drifting, floating, moseying about in isolated bliss, wholly contained, predictable, and safe. But it wasn't always this way. Somewhere in their ancestry is a golden jellyfish that is still armored, and their stingers stretch like elongated clubs, just enough to deter the average predator. But that was before some eons ago, when the oceans rose high enough to deposit them into an unsuspecting hideaway. And when the oceans receded again, the jellyfish were left alone. 12 millennia interrupted, and a violent world shifted. The jellyfish woke one day to an eerie silence, and slowly, over the lonely centuries, their clubs disappeared. Years ago, I visited the lake with my cousins, and I saw the jellyfish for the first time. We swam out to the middle of the lake. We floated at the surface, heads submerged as we waited. They appeared from the deep, 1 and then 10, and then hundreds and then thousands. Like a sea of gold, they bloomed like swallowed sunlight, and we watched as they surrounded us, closer and closer, near enough to touch, and we let them. We sunk into that field of yellow, alien and terrifying and quiet. The hour rolled by, and they left as suddenly as they came, migrating to the other side of the lake, leaving us dazed in the center. We swam back to shore, dazed and restless. And I remember the rush of wind as our boats left the lagoon. I remember looking out unseeing, eyes still lost in a million spheres of light, and the faintest sting on my cheek where the jellyfish grazed me. Like a faint sunburn, too weak to hurt, but just present enough to itch. They don't have their clubs anymore, my uncle said, just time's leftovers. It began to rain, and I thought about the totaling silence of ancient lakes and heavy skies. Sometimes I dream about a million golden jellyfish, and sometimes I dream about bodies softening in the absence of violence, and the profound loneliness of hiding, and the blessed secret places where ancient beings have found a different way to live. Sometimes I think about the nature of escape and the inexplicable disasters that chase us into burrows we then shape into comfort. And I remember this time last year, mid-lockdown, wondering if art could be a lake again, if I could cut through the oppressing fog of a violent loneliness and wake up to something kind and separate and surprising. I found it in my mother's bread and laying out in the backyard, and 2 feral orange cats eating out of my hand. And I found it in Julian Aguon's World in a Red Dirt Hill, when he said that perpetual light is the ancient beauty, when he talked about beauty and peril, when he talked about grasshoppers hiding in the grass, so small, so contained, so separate from all of the violent things that sometimes come to define us. And suddenly I am brought back to the profound sublime of the land and the ocean and the faces that hold us, like 8-spotted butterfly wings, like 12,000 years of a quiet lake, hinting at our survival, hinting at an unexpected kindness of being. Sometimes I dream of jellyfish and grasshoppers and a place unburdened by violence. I dream of a future like a million beings of light, and we are there, because there's so much sun to chase and silence to sit in and bodies to brush up against, and the world is so big and small and big and small. Sometimes I dream of a future like a million beings of light, and we are there. Thank you. Saino Asi for letting me share that with you all. I will be turning this over to a beloved friend and writer and thinker, and probably one of the most important artistic influences on my life. I hope that in what I had shared, you hear all the love that I have for who Julian is as a person and his worldview and his pursuit of beauty, and how that has revived me in ways that nothing could in the past year. And when I'm so burdened by the heaviness of life, I think about Julian's perceptive mind and his ability to invoke beauty and just the gift that is, and the rareness that is when we're reminded so much of violence in our day-to-day life. And so, you guys are all blessed to be in the presence of Julian. And he is mentored me as a writer, and I'm so thankful for him. And I hope that you listen to his words and you feel connected to the things that exist outside of violence. And I hope that you feel that perpetual light. So thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. God, I cannot with you. I don't even know where to start. But obviously, this is becoming just a love fest, which is okay. I love Siobhan to a ridiculous degree. I asked her actually, just so you know, the book officially launches on Monday. So we are just like 2 or 3 days away now. But before I could release it out into the world, I really, really wanted her opinion. I respect her so much. I think she's one of the writers that shows the greatest promise to produce, I don't know, like the best kind of literature, and she's really quite talented. I know I'm just like a reverse introduction. I know I'm very aware, but I just want you to know that I gave her an advanced copy of the book because I really wanted her to honor me with writing a blurb for it, which she did, and which I'm so grateful for. So yeah, thank you so much, Siobhan, for the introduction. And yeah, I will read 2 pieces, one of which I have read before when I first opened the books up for pre-orders, and one of which I have not read yet, because I know that it's Siobhan's favorite piece or one of them, and so I really want to share it with you to honor her. The first piece is called Mugo. They say if you take the Mugo from a dog's eyes and rub it into your own, you can see the dead. They lied. I know because I tried. After Dad died, rubbed more Mugo in my eyes than I care to admit. And that's not the crazy thing. The crazy thing is I didn't have a dog. So I settled for strays, chased those poor dogs all around the neighborhood, because beggars can't be choosers. Because desperation, like belief, is a powerful thing. And because I was 10 and could not yet put 2 and 2 together, I somehow thought if I could see my dad, I could speak to him too. Ask him all my questions. Do you like heaven? Are you and God friends? Do you miss us? Do you miss me? Do you still have a body? Is it chubby like before cancer or skinny like after? What's your favorite food? Mine is cheese. Is yours? Is that because Sokka, our family name on your side, means rat? What about Uggan? My teacher said Uggan refers to the family of tubers, as in taros and yams. Why is tuber such a weird word? And how are we related to taros and yams? How exactly? Can you help Mom? All she does is walk around sad and cry in that scary way where she shakes but don't make no sound. Also, she faints a lot. Also, can you help Rhea? She don't talk no more. She don't laugh. It's too quiet in the house. Can you come back and make it noisy again? I chased those poor dogs for nothing. I never saw him. Never got to ask him all my questions. The medical term for Mugo is room, a fancy word for eye gunk, the crust that collects in the corners of our eyes sometimes after a good night's sleep. A natural part of healthy eye function, doctors say, nothing more. But then doctors don't know everything. This piece is entitled, it's one of the shortest in the book, it's entitled More Right. My Aunt Lou told me once that it is easier for our people to believe in magic than it is for others. As soon as she said it, I knew it was true. I knew because that day she'd taken my sister and me, plus 2 of our cousins, to a beach on the northern coast of the island where the sand is shaped like stars. We got lost in those stars. We bent over their tiny bodies for hours, inspecting them as closely as we could without a magnifying glass, wishing we had one, even if only one, even if it meant we had to share. We made star castles. We cartwheeled over constellations. We ran around and fell down on a blanket of stars. We took turns burying each other in a beautiful graveyard of celestial bodies. My aunt's husband, a white man from Australia, explained later that they weren't stars at all, but rather foraminifera, tiny single-celled creatures who live at the bottom of the sea, whose exoskeletons wash ashore when they die. Forum sands, he said. He was right, of course, but my aunt was more right. Because eyes wide with wonder is a perfectly good definition of magic. Because magic could just as easily mean stargazing in the midday sun while looking down. Because we had so little, yet somehow we had it all. Thank you so much. I hope you like the pieces. These were some of the shortest pieces in the book, but powerful nonetheless, I believe. And what some of the other speakers alluded to earlier in this session was that, you know, we in Guam and the wider Micronesian region, we have been reared on a steady diet of dispossession. As Siobhan says, we wake up to violence and it's on the daily, and human remains, sets of them, multiple sets, have been disturbed, you know, for the construction of a permanent Marine Corps base, the first one since 1952. In my other sort of life, I am a human rights lawyer and I work full-time on these and other issues. I had the honor of filing with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, particularly various UN special rapporteurs, including the rapporteur on the rights of Indigenous peoples on behalf of Pratehila Texan, Save Ritidian, a local group. And I believe that's sort of, all of that context is also really important because I think they reveal my own sense of the need to attend to beauty and to announce the presence of the beautiful where she exists. Even amidst all of the sort of destruction that's sort of everywhere, you know, lurking. It just feels like we, you know, death and destruction are lurking around every corner. And I think that there's something about that that is profoundly, but also singularly exhausting. And I think the book is a gift in the sense that it tries to very lovingly and very gently celebrate the resilience of our people in the face of all that, and my own deep desire that we overcome that, survive that, and also my own attempt to call forth other young writer activists to bring forward their gifts to help the community. Thank you all so much. I also don't know who to give it back to, so I think someone will take it.
Thanks, Julian. I feel so floored. I feel so floored. I had to go find this perpetual light that's shining. I want to just give my immense gratitude to all of the people who read tonight. Give my immense gratitude to you and your ancestors, for the lands that nurture you, for all the spirits that walk by your side. And I want to say a couple of words to clarify the curatorial role that I played tonight. I wanted to select, I kept trying to get the New Yorican to allow me to invite more people. But with the 4 slots that were available, I wanted to ask somebody back home and somebody who's here on the continent, and ask them to select somebody whose work they feel really moved by, somebody whose work they want to be highlighted. And I just feel so moved by the choices Lehua and Julian made, and I'm so glad that Siobhon and Clarissa have joined us tonight. And I just want to say Migai Ma'asi to you all. Migai Ma'asi to the Nuyorican for having us for the first ever Mes CHamoru at the Nuyorican. And yeah, just I feel so grateful, and please follow these powerful artists and lots of other things that these people do. And please support the work of our people to bring beauty back to the mundane, to make the beautiful mundane again, normalized, gorgeous. And so with that, I would like to close tonight's event with a short little song of gratitude. And it says, to the ancestors of all creation, we give such immense gratitude. There's such immense compassion. Imana saina migai maasi. Imana saina migai maasi. Imana saina migai maasi. Imana saina migai maasi. All right. Well, migai maasi. Zanfanat tapti.